Hi, I'm Mike from Having an East Tense Mind, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed our recent videos that have been able to give you a slight insight into the work that we do. Today, obviously, we're going to be focusing in on some of those wellbeing tips and tools that we would sometimes use as part of our training, sometimes we would use with service users, but also all of our community engagement really draws on identifying some small ways that we can all make changes. Sometimes this is really important because we're struggling with a mental health illness or symptoms, but also generally just as part of our day-to-day lives, whether we have or are affected by an illness or not. These are great ways to start making improvements to our well-being. The tool that we're going to kind of focus in on today is the 5 ways to well-being. This is a great insight into how there are a range of different things that we can do, that we can try to improve our well-being, but also recognising the things that we're already doing really well. At this point, I also want to mention some of the other charities, organisations and businesses that are sharing their wellbeing tools and tips this week. It's been really great to see so many different places get involved with that conversation about wellbeing, about providing positive and reassuring examples that there is support available, there are resources that you're able to engage and use, and it's been really good to see some of those conversations as well. Hopefully the information in today's video will go alongside that, and we will signpost to some of those resources as well. So the 5 ways to wellbeing, we are looking at keeping active, being connected, taking notice, continued learning and giving. It might be that you want to engage with all 5 of these areas, but there might be 1 or 2 in particular that really draw your attention. Maybe that's because it's something that you struggle with or that you would like to do more. It can be for any reason you want. So first up, we're looking at being connected to improve our well-being. I think this is a really important topic, particularly at a time when so many of us are struggling with being isolated and away from friends, families, colleagues as well. There are a lot of different ways that you can be connected. Over the last couple of weeks now, we've started to see more and more communication happen online. Whether it's through videos, through phone calls, through shared messages, there's a lot of different ways to engage with people. We've noticed recently the increased use in resources such as Zoom, Facebook Messenger, House Party now with games. There are a lot of great ways to engage with people. If you're in a shared living environment, it can also be really important to make sure that you are having conversations with the people that you live with. If there are different types of preferences, if you have different types of routines, suddenly a lot of us are going to be in more of a shared living environment than we usually are. So make sure those conversations are still happening. Equally, with your work colleagues, you might not be able to just drop into the office next door now. So make sure you're keeping up those conversations. Have weekly chats and check-ins and ensure that you're keeping up to date with everything that's going on, but you're also keeping that friendly, communicative environment available. Keeping active is obviously really important and is part of the government guidance about going outside and walking and running once a day. However, there's lots of things that you can do indoors as well. If you've got steps and you're able to do sort of a routine or a run or step-ups through those. Equally, a lot of circuit training, HIIT training, you're able to do indoors, in a garden or a small space. So do look online at those different workouts and activities that you can do. And a great one that we've seen you guys recommend is obviously the Joe Wicks PE sessions in the morning. So another great way to have that initial activity and involvement. Giving can be really important for our well-being. And often when we say give, we think about financial terms. Well, yes, that's a great option, especially for charities like ourselves. But at this time when so many people are struggling financially, it's about looking at other and different ways that we can give and support people. That might be sharing your own knowledge, your experience, your skills. One of the great things we've seen recently is the new campaign that we are launching with Kenwood, where we're encouraging people to cook or bake and provide a meal for a vulnerable or self-isolating neighbour or nearby friend. It's about looking at how we can support other people and putting them first in certain situations. being able to check in on that neighbour, make sure that they're okay. Actually being able to share your own knowledge. If someone is struggling to use some of the new technologies to connect with their family, are you able to walk them through it or talk them through how to set that up on their device at home? There are a lot of different ways to give. Also, for us as a charity, one of the really key things that we signpost to usually is something like easy fundraising, where if you do your shopping through a certain app and website, the money that you spend results in a small amount going to the charity. You don't pay any extra, it's something that's paid back through the company. So it's a great way to be able to give financially without it costing you. Continued learning can be really important for our well-being as well. And that might be through online courses, skill sharing, watching a YouTube video to learn how to sew or knit or replace a tyre. These are all great ways to upskill ourselves and have that opportunity to learn something new, to have something else that we're able to share and give to somebody else as well. It's also a great opportunity at this time to learn and understand more things about ourselves, particularly in regards to routine. Routine is something that really does support many people's well-being and something that a lot of people will be struggling with at the moment. Just getting up in the morning, getting dressed, getting ready for work, signing into your emails or however you are working at the moment is a really important way to get started and get ready and get into that mindset. But it's about thinking and understanding the environment that you're currently in, the other people that you currently live with or are residing with, and understanding and learning how that process works for you and those other people. Are there things about your routine that you could change? Would you feel happier or healthier if you got up slightly earlier or later? Are there different times of the day that you can work or that you would prefer to work? Maybe having an earlier start and a later finish and a little bit longer at lunch so you can have that walk or that exercise or engage with the other people that you're currently living or residing with. Routine is a really, really important thing for many people, and this is an area that I think we are increasingly learning about and understanding as our routines change. And that leads us on quite nicely to taking notice. This is an area that involves a couple of different things. I think we've already talked about that idea of kind of reviewing and reflecting and taking notice of the things that work for us or that maybe aren't working right now. And while that can be really useful, it's also important to use take notice as an opportunity to step back and be reflective without being judgmental about a certain situation. So we're talking about things like mindfulness, active listening, yoga. These are great activities to get us into that mindset to switch off to some extent, to be more reflective, more mindful and more at peace or more balanced. There are a number of different online resources. Once again, YouTube has a number of great people that show you a yoga session, a walkthrough. There are personal trainers that are now delivering sessions online as well. So a great way to get an initial insight into that. There are also channels that will provide you with active listening, things like body scans, guided meditation. Again, a lot of different resources, an opportunity to learn which one works for you and doesn't work for you. At this time, I think it's also really important to think about, to learn, to take notice of the information that we're taking in and absorbing. Keeping up to date with the most relevant information can be and is important, but there also has to be a balance of that. Listening and taking in too much information can be damaging for some people's mental health. So making sure while you're up to date, maybe just limiting the amount that you are taking in can be a really useful tool for many people. Maybe set aside half an hour or an hour, maximum a day, that you're going to use to check online resources, news articles or press updates. So a huge thank you to all of you that sent through your wellbeing tips and tools, and it was really great to hear and read through some of them. Please do keep continuing to share those over on the social media sites and the conversations that you're having offline as well. I'm going to read through a couple that kind of stood out because they linked into some of the wellbeing conversations that we've started already. So first up, a huge thank you to Catherine that sent through 3 suggestions covering our living spaces, so making sure that they're clear and accessible, which I think is really important if we're going to be working at home. Also for those social, pleasurable activities, making sure that there are spaces that we feel happy and comfortable in is going to be really important. Also making sure we've got some creative time to try different things like puzzles, quizzes, colouring. Again, I think this is something that fits in really well as a wellbeing activity. It's a great opportunity for us to try new things if we're going to use some of those maybe videos on YouTube, or video conferencing with a family member or a friend, and we're going to try and learn something from them. Equally, there are great ways to do things like board games, either on your own or if you can do it through a video conference. In the last week I've seen people playing with relatives, chess and checkers and games like that through video, so you are able to do that. She also speaks about looking to see if you've got any unread books on your bookshelf as well. And I think more and more as we go on looking at some of those resources, activities, games, books that we already have but haven't really utilised within our house or our home or wherever we're staying at the moment, is going to be really important. So thinking about those things that you have but you haven't used yet already. Next up, I want to mention Naomi's suggestions. So she talks very much about our routine and making sure that we get dressed and ready in the morning. I think that's going to be hugely important for so many people that are now working from home for the very first time. Equally, if you are having other chores or activities or responsibilities or commitments that you have at home, maybe looking after or caring for other people that are in your household as well. So making sure as much as possible you're preparing yourself for work. And if that involves putting on a top, putting on your work uniform or outfit, sitting yourself down somewhere, setting up, logging into your laptop or your workstation, that's a really important part of your preparation for work. Naomi mentions the importance of fresh air. So if we're able to open doors, windows, even step outside for a short while, maybe that's into the garden, or going for that short walk, the fresh air, having that ability to kind of refresh, to breathe in that new and clean air is going to be really important. Also, as we're spending more time inside, opening up those windows, letting the air move around, getting some new air in is going to be really important. So hopefully, fingers crossed, for good weather, and we're able to keep on doing that as much as possible. Naomi's last point as well is trying to keep to meal times. So I think it was Naomi, we had a couple of people mention things like snacking and eating through the day. So for us, I think it's really important that we look at, again, what supports your well-being, and it might be learning and adapting to that. Again, there might be other commitments if you're caring for or supporting other people within your household. But it's trying to keep to that routine that's going to support your well-being as much as possible, and seeing what you can do around the structure of that. Noreen sent through a couple of suggestions, so making sure you've got a list of things that you can do or work through, whether that's at home, in the garden, for work or for pleasure. And again, I think a lot of people really benefit from lists, so having that kind of task list that you want to work through, kind of getting that positive endorphin hit when you tick off something that's been an activity that you need to do. So that's a really good suggestion. She also mentions identifying if there are apps that you can use to connect with friends and relatives. And again, we've mentioned a couple. Skype, Zoom can be really good. Microsoft Teams is a great one for communicating with work colleagues. And in the last sort of week or so as well, I've discovered House Party. So it's looking at different things that you can find to support your well-being, engage in the way that you need to. So if it's a work-related conversation, something that feels quite professional, allows you maybe to share documents. If it's something for home and for fun, is there kind of that tie-in to games or music or some sort of shared experience as well, can be really important. And finally, we have Anna sent through a couple of suggestions, and that really important side of maybe how we view ourselves and our expectations at this time, making sure that you kind of give yourself permission to not have to do everything or at times anything, knowing that we are going to have certain struggles or challenges just as part of our day-to-day life, but particularly as our lives change in this period. We are learning new routines, we are learning about new resources that we need to use and access at this time. Also about looking for different types of therapy and support as well can be really important to people. If it's something that you have accessed in the past and you're now struggling to, for whatever reason, there are a number of different online resources for counselling, for therapy, that can be really positive and engaging for people. It also might just be a wellbeing tip or tool service. So National Mind have the Ellie Friends platform, which is a great place for you to go and have conversations with other people, hear about people that may be having similar experiences to yourself, or might be able to signpost you to support and resources that could be useful as well. So looking at and finding out about some of those kind of tools, resources, websites, apps, again, could be really useful for a range of different things. Thank you to everyone that sent through their suggestions. We picked on just a couple there to share with you, but do have those conversations at home. Check out our social media to see some of the other suggestions that came through as well. Next up, we wanted to share some resources with you. So these are going to be a combination of resources and signposting that we would usually use as part of our training or conversations. Also some that you guys have sent through over social media, emails, conversations that we've had in the last couple of weeks. So kind of a mixture of different places that these resources have come from. Again, a huge thank you to everyone that is having those conversations, that are sharing the resources with us or with other people that you may know. First up, local volunteer networks. We have one that's been established and haven't, but across the country there will be local volunteer networks that are being set up, established, that are proactively looking to support people within the community at this time around the COVID-19 virus outbreak. That might be supporting people to have access to food, resources, shelter. Check in with your local volunteer network, search that online, and it will come up with the network nearest to you. Also, the number of national websites that are engaging and now sharing mental health resources, signposting, support, and initially starting that conversation as well. For us, there's information on the gov.org website, also on the NHS website as well, that talk about mental health, some of the symptoms, some of the support that you can access, some wellbeing tips and tools as well are mentioned on some of those sites. So there is increasingly this recognition of the importance to signpost, to support, to recognise our mental health. Whether we are diagnosed with an illness or not, many of us will be struggling with different symptoms of mental ill health. Equally, hopefully, as we are doing through videos like this, we are sharing resources that can help support our wellbeing in a very positive way. So it's recognising that mental health isn't just about some of those struggles, it's also about successes as well. Through our training, we very much talk about mental health being on a continuum or a kind of a linear process. So it's recognising that there are those positive sides as well. In terms of resources, so many of you, we mentioned it earlier, things like PE with Joe Wicks, great ways to access resources, to keep active, to recognise some of the new resources that are being available, particularly at this time through video and online. We've also had, just this morning, I've seen a message that's come through about the Cooking with Jamie stuff that's going on online. So again, more and more activities are available through those type of resources. That could be that it's supporting if you are educating a young person at home, but equally I think for many of us, just our own well-being, keeping physically active in the morning, having access to some of those resources can be really important. We've talked earlier about YouTube and the opportunity to kind of upskill, to learn things ourselves, but also looking at resources like podcasts, having that audio as we go through the day, whether that's just as a pleasurable thing to listen to a certain story or someone talk about a particular activity that we're passionate about, whether that's a sport, a leisure recreation activity, social settings, topics that we're interested in. There are a huge variety of podcasts, so it's a great way, again, to utilise particular resources that are there. There are also podcasts which focus in on mental health as well, so again, a great opportunity to pick up and learn new resources and hear about other people's stories. On YouTube, there's a great channel, The Honest Guys, where they will give you some guided meditation. Those videos last from anything from, I think, 3 minutes up to 3 hours. So a huge variety and mixture of resources that are available. Also this week we've seen the Scouts Great Indoor Initiative started with a huge range of resources, of activities that you can get involved with while focused on young people. Again, something that actually many of us could try, a different activity, just break up our day, could be really important. So do have a look at the Scouts website. Creating your own wellness action plan. This is something we do at Having It in East Hants Mind. When someone starts with us as part of their induction, they'll create their own wellness action plan, looking at some of the things that they might struggle with and how we can support them through that. So if you're aware that you do struggle with certain symptoms or a certain diagnosed illness, actually sitting down, working through what does that look like? When I struggle with that, what does it look like? How does it kind of manifest? What kind of things can I, or potentially the other people that I am living with at the moment, what could they do to support me? Having those conversations can be really important. So creating your own wellness action plan could be something that you look at in terms of a resource. Also, the huge and growing number of wellbeing apps. They might be specifically for mental health, but equally they could be non-mental health related apps, but they might be something that support your well-being. Podcast would be a great example of that. Not really a mental health app, but for a number of people that is going to support their mental health and their well-being. Going through and picking up different things that work for you, try them out, see if there are other examples of that. The iTalk website, which I think is italk.org, has a list of resources that patients can use, and within that you'll see a list of mental health apps. You can access that resource whether you're a patient or not, so it might be somewhere that you're interested in looking and reading through the resources that they would signpost you to as well. Equally, many of us now have our own phone which will have a calendar, a notes app. These are great ways to record maybe some of the things that you are doing, thinking or feeling, and be able to reflect back on those. What has your last couple of days, your last week, your last 2 weeks, your last month looked like? So these are free apps or support services that are available on our devices. So do make use of the things that you already have access to as well. And then lastly, we also have playlists. So a number of different organisations and groups now have their own playlists on places like Spotify that are focusing in on well-being. You might want to pick and choose somebody else's, but you could also create your own. Go through and pick out the songs that help keep you motivated through the day. Once again, thank you for sending through all of those suggestions over on our social media channels, for having those conversations at home about well-being. Please do look at some of the resources we've mentioned. Also see if there are others that you or your friends, family members might be aware of. Keep those conversations going. Do check in on some of those activities and those websites. Mental Health First Aiders Association have put up some stuff recently, as have the World Health Organization, around some of the activities you can do, and they've got some nice graphics if you want to share those with other people. Equally, the project that we've just started with Kenwood, so the Kenwood Care Package, again is a great way to support other people in your local community if you feel able to and you feel it's safe to. Please do engage with as many resources as possible. As we mentioned previously, our wellbeing team and services have provided updates about how those services are being run over on our website, so please do go and check that out. We are looking into how our training and fundraising activities are going to be happening in the future, and we hope to be able to provide you with an update very, very soon. Thank you so much for all of your support and your engagement at this time. We hope you're keeping well and safe. Thank you.